Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm really glad you're here because today I have a story to share, one that has been weighing on my heart for a long time. My name is Gary, and before I begin, I have a question for you. How much disrespect can a person take in a relationship before they finally reach their limit? How many times can you ignore things, tell yourself it's not a big deal, or stay quiet just to avoid conflict? For me, that breaking point came at my wife Pamela's 30th birthday party. What happened that night changed everything. From that moment on, I knew there was no going back. But let me be clear, it wasn't a sudden decision. I didn't just wake up one day and decide to walk away from my marriage. It was the result of years of small moments, of letting things slide, of pushing my feelings aside, of hoping things would get better. I kept telling myself I could fix it. But that night, something inside me snapped, and after that, the damage was irreversible. Like most love stories, mine started beautifully. Meeting Pamela felt like something out of a movie. The moment I saw her, everything else around me faded. She had this effortless grace, a quiet confidence that drew me in. But it wasn't just about how she looked. She was sharp, funny, and engaging. Talking to her felt natural, like we were already connected before we even knew each other. Didn't take long for me to fall completely in love. We moved fast, but it felt right. I was sure she was the one. If anyone had told me otherwise back then, I would have thought they were crazy. So when I proposed and she said yes, I felt like I had everything I had ever wanted. But marriage is different from dating. Once we started living together, little things began to surface, habits I hadn't noticed before. I told myself it was just the normal adjustment phase. Everyone has flaws, right? I loved her, so I let those things slide. I thought I was being patient and understanding. What I didn't realize was that these weren't just quirks. They were signs of deeper differences between us, differences I had overlooked in the rush of falling in love. One of the biggest differences became clear when we talked about having kids. I always imagined having a small family. To me, that was part of a complete and fulfilling life. It never even crossed my mind that my partner might feel differently. When we were dating, Pamela never mentioned not wanting children, so I assumed we were on the same page. Then, one evening after we were married, she told me she wasn't thinking about kids anytime soon. She had other priorities and didn't see starting a family as important. I didn't argue. I told myself she would change her mind eventually. I figured that as time passed and her biological clock started ticking, she would feel differently. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. I just didn't want to face the truth. As time went on, I noticed something about Pamela. When she wanted something, there was no room for negotiation. It was always her way or no way. I didn't mind doing whatever I could to make her happy. I was in love and I wanted her to feel special. But after marriage, that dynamic started to feel one-sided. It didn't matter what I needed. If it clashed with what she wanted, it was brushed aside. Her need to be in control seeped into everything. The more she got her way, the more I felt like my needs didn't count. There was another layer to it too, a kind of quiet superiority she carried. She never said it outright, but she acted like she was above me in some way. The way she spoke, the little jabs, the passive-aggressive comments, all of it made me feel like she thought she was doing me a favor by being with me. Whenever she compromised, she didn't call it compromise. She called it settling. That word stuck with me. Every time she said it, it felt like she was telling me she could have done better. Meanwhile, I was doing everything I could to make our home work. I worked full-time and covered most of our expenses. Pamela worked too, but I was pulling more of the weight financially and still trying to keep our home in order. And yet, no matter how much I gave, it felt like it was never enough for her to respect me. She never acknowledged what I did. It was like it didn't even register to her. It was always about her, what she needed, what she wanted. I tried to talk to her about how I was feeling, hoping that if I explained things, she'd understand. But every time I brought it up, she'd wave it off like I was overreacting. "You're just making problems where there aren't any," she'd say. And just like that, the conversation would end. It was like hitting a wall. The more I tried, the more I realized she had no interest in hearing me. That distance between us grew wider, and she didn't seem to notice or care. She made no effort to bridge the gap. Eventually, I started spending more and more time at work or holed up in my study at home. Being in the same room with her felt heavy. Our interactions became limited to surface-level talk. We weren't connecting anymore. We weren't even really living together in an emotional sense, we were just sharing space. The only time we resembled a couple was when we were around other people. In public, we smiled, laughed, and played the happy husband and wife. But the moment we were alone again, it was back to silence. Back to pretending. When her 30th birthday was coming up, I saw it as a chance to reconnect. I was tired of the coldness between us. Thought maybe, just maybe, if I made her birthday special, it could be the start of turning things around. I didn't know exactly how to do that, but I was willing to try. Then, one evening, Pamela casually mentioned that she was thinking about throwing a small party for her birthday. That was my moment. I jumped in and told her I'd take care of everything. "Don't worry about a thing. I've got it," I said. She looked genuinely relieved, maybe even grateful, and kissed me. For a second, I felt hopeful again. I went all in. I hired an event planner and worked out every single detail, the decorations, the menu, the ambience. I wanted it to be flawless. I didn't want to give her any reason to say it wasn't enough. I figured that if I pulled it off just right, she'd see that I still cared, that I wasn't giving up on us. But that night, that birthday party, was when everything truly fell apart. What happened pushed me beyond the point of no return. And that's where the story really begins. It was exactly the kind of thing Pamela would have loved. I didn't hold back. Extra flowers, personalized invitations, the perfect music, thoughtful lighting. I went all out. When the day of the party finally arrived, the house looked beautiful. Everything had come together just as I had imagined. A flicker of pride stirred in me as I took it all in. As guests began to arrive, friends, co-workers, even some people I was pretty sure Pamela barely cared about, I didn't think much of it. None of that mattered. Pamela, like always, was the center of attention. She looked radiant, almost unreal, gliding from group to group, laughing, sparkling under the lights. I couldn't stop watching her. I couldn't help but admire how breathtaking she looked that night, that I never minded doing whatever I could to make her happy. I was in love, and I wanted her to feel special. But after marriage, things started to feel one-sided. My needs didn't seem to matter if they clashed with what she wanted. She brushed them aside. Her need for control seeped into everything. The more she got her way, the more I felt like my feelings didn't count. There was another layer to it too, a quiet superiority she carried. She never said it outright, but the way she spoke, the little jabs, the passive-aggressive comments, they all made me feel like she believed she was above me. Whenever she compromised, she didn't call it a compromise. She called it settling. That word stuck with me. Every time she said it, it felt like she was telling me she could have done better. Meanwhile, I was doing everything I could to make our home work. I worked full-time and covered most of our expenses. Pamela worked too, but I was pulling more of the weight financially while also trying to keep our home in order. And yet, no matter how much I gave, it was never enough for her to respect me. She never acknowledged what I did. It was always about her, what she needed, what she wanted. I tried to talk to her about how I felt. I hoped that if I explained things, she'd understand. But every time I brought it up, she'd wave it off. "You're just making problems where there aren't any," she'd say. And that would be the end of the conversation. The distance between us grew. She didn't seem to notice or care. She made no effort to bridge the gap. Eventually, I started spending more time at work or locked up in my study at home. Being in the same room with her felt heavy. Our interactions became surface level. We weren't connecting anymore. We were just sharing space. The only time we looked like a couple was when we were around others. In public, we smiled and laughed, playing the role of a happy husband and wife. But the moment we were alone again, it was back to silence, back to pretending. When her 30th birthday was coming up, I saw it as a chance to reconnect. I was tired of the coldness between us. Maybe, just maybe, if I made her birthday special, we could start to fix things. I didn't know exactly how, but I was willing to try. One evening, Pamela mentioned she was thinking about throwing a small party. That was my moment. I jumped in and told her I'd handle everything. "Don't worry about a thing. I've got it," I said. She looked relieved, even grateful, and kissed me. For the first time in a while, I felt hopeful again. I went all in. I hired an event planner and worked on every detail: decorations, menu, music, lighting. I wanted it to be flawless. I figured that if I pulled it off just right, she'd see that I still cared, that I wasn't giving up on us. But that night, everything truly fell apart. The house looked beautiful. Guests arrived, friends, coworkers, even some people I was pretty sure Pamela barely cared about. But none of that mattered. Like always, she was the center of attention. She looked radiant, moving from group to group, laughing, glowing under the lights. I watched her, admiring how breathtaking she looked. But all I could really think about was the quiet moment I was hoping for after the party, the one where it would just be the two of us. I had a gift for her, something personal, something from the heart. Maybe, if I said the right words, we could finally have the honest conversation we had been avoiding for too long. Then came her speech. First, it was what you'd expect. She thanked everyone for being there, said how loved and supported she felt. She talked about turning 30, about how life hadn't turned out exactly as planned, but how everything had worked out perfectly. Then she smiled, glanced around the room, and in a light, joking voice said, "Yeah, everything's been perfect. I guess I kind of settled for Gary." The room erupted in laughter. Everyone thought it was funny, just a cute jab, something playful. But I didn't laugh. I couldn't. The words hit me like a punch in the chest. I'd heard her say it before, offhandedly, during small arguments. But hearing it now, so casually in front of a crowd, that was different. It stung. It didn't feel like a joke. It felt like the truth she had decided to disguise with a smile and share in front of an audience. To them, it might have seemed like nothing. But to me, it felt like she was telling the entire room that I was second best, a consolation prize. And the worst part? Everyone laughed like it was the most normal thing in the world. I couldn't pretend anymore. Not this time. Without a word, I left the party, walked to our bedroom, and started packing a bag. I didn't hesitate. I didn't look back. I just knew I couldn't stay, not in a place where I was made to feel small, unworthy. Hours passed. I knew Pamela was still downstairs, likely soaking up the attention. Then my phone buzzed. It was her. I felt that familiar tightness in my chest, the mix of anger and disappointment. I took a deep breath before even looking at the message. "Where are you?" she wrote. I didn't answer. A minute later, my phone rang. Her name lit up the screen. I let it ring a few times before finally picking up. But I didn't let her speak. "I'm tired of being humiliated, Pamela," I said. "Tonight was it. I'm done." There was a long pause. I don't know if she was shocked or just pretending, but she acted like she didn't know what I meant. She called it a misunderstanding. She tried to laugh it off. "It was just a silly joke," she said. "You're overreacting. Being dramatic. Throwing a tantrum. Tantrum." My blood boiled. That's what she thought this was? That's how little she valued my pain? It wasn't a joke to me. It never had been. It was the way she truly saw me, disguised as humor. I ended the call. She kept calling. I didn't answer. Later, she sent another message. "It was just a harmless joke. I didn't mean to hurt you." But I didn't believe her. Her words didn't mean anything to me anymore. She just wanted to soothe her guilt. But nothing could undo what had already been done. She had crossed a line, and this time there was no going back. I didn't respond. Weeks passed. She kept trying, texts, calls, long voicemails. But nothing changed how I felt. I had been losing myself in that relationship. So I did what I needed to do. I contacted a divorce lawyer. Papers were delivered to her a few days later. I didn't feel guilt. I felt free. 2 days after that, I went back to the house to collect the last of my things. She found me there. Her face was streaked with tears. She begged me to reconsider, to think about the promises we made, to remember what we had shared. But the damage was already done. I looked her in the eye and said, "That doesn't matter anymore." Looking back, I've learned some painful but important lessons. First, never assume you're on the same page with someone unless you've had deep, honest conversations. I assumed Pamela and I wanted the same future, but I never really asked. That was my mistake. Second, when someone keeps disrespecting you, even through jokes, pay attention. That's how they truly see you. Third, silence isn't always peace. I mistook withdrawal for stability when really it was just the quiet collapse of our relationship. And finally, when someone constantly dismisses your feelings, they're telling you exactly how much you're worth to them. So I have to ask, was I wrong to walk away that night? Did I miss something? Or did I do the right thing? If you've ever been in a situation like mine, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for sticking with me. Maybe my story will help someone else find their way out.